So we've got some interesting news from the EV world because, Case, what we're looking at today is a Tesla Cybertruck that appears to be saving a stranded Rivian.
Yeah, and this is really the first that we're seeing one of these Cybertrucks used in this manner. It's charging up the Rivian, which presumably has a fairly dead battery, and this is something that we've got a bit of experience with.
Yeah, we sure do, and we're gonna talk about the mechanics behind this, what's going on here, and maybe clear up some confusion around this picture. Now, this picture was posted on LinkedIn by someone named Kitty Adams Hoxbergen, who is the executive director at Adopt a Charger Inc. And here is what she says, the caption with the photo. My neighbor shared this picture with me. He got an emergency charge on his Rivian R1t by a Tesla Cybertruck on a road trip with his family. He is too pissed off at the moment to tell me the story, but I can bet he was stranded by an unreliable third-party CCS. So Kitty is claiming that there was a Rivian that got stranded, potentially ran out of charge, and then this Tesla showed up to save the day. But there's a couple of potential ways that this can be confusing, right, Case? Because Tesla allows energy to be taken from the truck and delivered elsewhere in a couple different ways.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few different ways that you can pull energy off of a Cybertruck. Now, the big headline feature with the Cybertruck is that you can send 11.5 kilowatts of power to your home in an emergency if the power in your grid goes out. And that's an impressive figure. That's the biggest figure that we've seen from an EV thus far. However, that power comes out of the charge port. So that's specifically something that you would do in your home, but there are 5 other outlets and that you can pull power from for just about anything.
Right. This new technology that allows you to perhaps run your house off of your Tesla Cybertruck battery is called PowerShare. Now that, as you mentioned, draws power directly from the charge port. It's kind of a V2L situation, a vehicle to load situation. We've seen Ford do something similar in the Lightning, but what we think is going on with this Cybertruck is they're actually drawing power from the outlets in the bed.
Yeah, now there's 2 outlets inside the truck. There's also 2 110 outlets in the bed, and there's a 220 outlet in the bed as well, which is a 40 amp setup, and it can deliver quite a bit of power, but this cable, I don't know, can we tell if that's a 110 or a 220?
That's a good question. Now we know where those outlets are located, at least that high power outlet's located on the back portion of the bed on the left side, which is kind of where the wire's going.
Yeah.
It does look to be a pretty skinny cable, so there's a chance that we're not seeing all 200 plus volts that the Cybertruck is capable of delivering, but realistically, you'd want to deliver that kind of power to get any kind of usable range, because a 110 outlet is really not going to get you a lot of range whatsoever in any kind of time that you want to hang around if you're trying to rescue someone from the side of the road. Now, here's where things are confusing, right? So that PowerShare system that draws electricity out of the charge port, we haven't actually seen a real-world application of that with the Cybertruck. We believe it's going to integrate like with the Tesla Powerwall system on your house.
Yeah.
But these outlets that they're using to charge the Rivian, these can be used to do anything, right? Like you could run power tools or a microwave if you're tailgating or a small fridge. In this case, they're just happening to use those outlets to charge another vehicle.
Yeah, and that part of the truck system can output 9.6 kilowatts. So it can't do the 11.5 you can get for your home out of the charge port, but 9.6 is still a good number. That matches the F-150 Lightning's ability to output. There's also the upcoming Ram Charger that's going to be able to put out about 7.2 kilowatts. But even that 9.6 number is still a pretty good figure. And
we have a lot of experience with this, actually. So we're going to play some clips now, 3 clips. The first thing I did is I actually used this technology in a hybrid truck, a gasoline hybrid truck, over 3 years ago when Ford launched the PowerBoost Hybrid that also came with a 240 volt system in the bed. And I used that to charge up a stranded BMW i3. And let's look at some of that information now. Now to test that 240 volt outlet, we could use something like a welder or an RV, and I think later this week we're going to try both of those things using the new F-150, but I want to try something that is incredibly power hungry. Now this 2014 i3 is pretty much completely dead, and I'm going to try using the F-150 to fill it back up to full, see if it can do it. In order to push the limits of the F-150 and see how fast it'll charge our dead BMW i3, I'm not going to use a standard 3-prong 120 volts plug. I'm going to use this beefy thing, 240 volts of fun. All right, so immediately by changing the AC power setting to maximum, that jumped down to 3:19 p.m. So that is under 4 hours.
Another situation where we use the similar technology was with our F-150 Lightning, and we actually drove it to go recover a fully electric Mini Cooper that we had that was completely out of battery.
Yeah, and when we did the i3 video, it was more of like a simulated what happens if you run out of battery. When we did the Mini video, myself and a colleague were literally completely stranded in some dude's driveway who was cool enough to let us come in and actually get some charge. And then we've also done some other stuff too, like with the Power Boost, we also towed a stranded EV, once again completely out of power, and charged it while we drove along. And you actually charged an electric motorcycle with a system like this too, right?
Yeah, we put an electric motorcycle in the bed of the Power Boost, and as we were driving it home, we had that electric motorcycle charging. And we've also had some people reach out to us and work with us a little bit on demonstrating how you can potentially power a house out of the similar setup, but for those, it's all different, and the way that a Tesla Cybertruck is potentially going to feed power into a house is going to be completely different than that.
Right, yeah. And Ford does have a setup you can buy too, which is a bi-directional system. It's very expensive, and I don't see a lot of people taking them up on that because there's a lot of stuff you have to do on your house side to make it work. But let's talk quickly about the feasibility of actually rescuing a stranded EV like this Rivian. So let's say that they are running a nice, juicy level 2 mobile connector setup plugged into 240, and they're able to accept 9 kilowatts of power into the Rivian. Well, there's some losses there and some other factors to consider, but let's say 9 kilowatts are going into the Rivian battery. Well, if you were to stop and charge for an hour using a Cybertruck and that 9 kilowatts, you could assume that the Rivian's going to suck up 9 kilowatt hours worth of electricity. And then if you look at like a Rivian efficiency, let's say you're on a family road trip, your truck is averaging 3 miles per kilowatt hour, 9 times 3 is 27 miles of range gained in an hour. So it's not a fast charging solution. It's not like you're going to a DC charger and sucking up 200 kilowatts. 27 miles of range gained in an hour is probably realistic, which could be enough if you're close to a charger to just limp you there. It's probably not going to be enough if the charger you're at is completely down and you got to go 100 miles to get to the next one.
Because the other obvious disadvantage is as you're sending power to the Rivian, you're also pulling power and range out of the Cybertruck. So this is really a last-ditch effort to get your vehicle limped over to another station where you can give it a proper charge, because there's a lot of disadvantages to charging an electric vehicle this way. And
that's a great point too, Case, right? Like the total capacity in that Tesla Cybertruck is about 123 kilowatt hours, somewhere in that territory. If that's a Rivian R1t with the new Max Pack, that's got a capacity of 140 kilowatt hours. So in theory, you could drain the Cybertruck battery completely and still not fully charge up the Rivian. So look, there's been some companies, like I think Lucid talks about it, where there might be solutions down the road where you could DC charge a car, charge port to charge port, and get more than, 9.5 kilowatts, where you could get 50 or 75 kilowatts, and then you're talking about real recovery services. In this case, it's kind of a cool experiment. We have used it. It does work. It's more useful for camping, for tailgating, for that kind of thing. But it's still cool to see that it appears to work in the Cybertruck.
Because there's so many obvious disadvantages to charging another vehicle off of your vehicle, I would be surprised if a lot of R&D gets put into being able to come up with a much quicker solution to go charge port to send power to another vehicle. But it is cool that in an emergency, you can pull power off the bed of the Cybertruck and help somebody get along their way. That's neat.
Yeah, 100%. Well, folks, we'd love to hear what you think of this pretty interesting picture. Again, we got this picture from the Kitty Adams Hawksbergen LinkedIn page. You can check it out if you want to see what she does on LinkedIn. But as always, this has been Tommy.
And Case.
We'll see you on another episode. Thanks for watching.